A serpent devouring its own tail is one of humanity's oldest and most haunting images. The Ouroboros is far more than an ancient curiosity. It is a direct line into the secret logic of the universe itself. By the end of this, you will possess a complete map of its hidden meanings, from cosmic creation to your own personal transformation. Why did cultures separated by millennia and geography all return to this same impossible loop? What does it truly mean to consume your own past? The symbol's power lies in its brutal simplicity, a perfect circle of self-destruction and self-renewal. It whispers that everything you know about beginnings and endings might be an illusion. What part of your own life feels like an endless, repeating cycle? That literal name, Tail Eater, is a key to its first layer of meaning. It describes an action, a process that is perpetually underway. This is not a static picture, it is a captured moment of an endless cycle. Visually, the image is disarmingly simple and yet profoundly unsettling. A serpent, often depicted with scales that catch an unseen light, coils into a perfect circle, its jaws clamped firmly around the end of its own body. It is the ultimate paradox made flesh, or rather, made line and form. Here is a creature that is both the consumer and the consumed, the destroyer and the source of its own regeneration. The circle it forms is the ancient, universal symbol for wholeness, for infinity, for something that has no true beginning or end. There is no point on that loop you can point to and say, "Here, this is the start." It just is. While the classic form is a single serpent, ancient artists played with this core idea. In some traditions, the creature appears more draconic, with hints of wings or feathers, blending elements of earth and sky. In others, you find the double Ouroboros, two serpents intertwined in a double loop, perhaps representing the duality of all things, male and female, light and dark, forever bound in a dance of mutual consumption and creation. But the core visual punch remains the same, a closed circuit of self-contained energy. Think of it as the ultimate piece of ancient graphic design, a logo for the universe itself. It communicates a complex, terrifying, and beautiful idea without a single word, a silent testament to a truth our ancestors felt in their bones, that creation and destruction are not opposites, but two sides of the same, ever-turning wheel. This symbol first emerges from the shadows not as a philosophical idea, but as a living, protective force. To find it, we must travel to the banks of the Nile, into the tomb of a pharaoh from over 3,400 years ago. Within the sacred texts meant to guide a soul through the afterlife, the enigmatic book of the netherworld, we encounter a stunning depiction. A massive, coiled serpent forms a perfect, protective circle around a central figure, often the sun god Ra. This is the earliest undisputed appearance of the Ouroboros in human history, and its purpose is breathtakingly specific. It was not merely decoration, it was a functional map of reality itself. In the Egyptian view, the sun did not simply set and rise. Each night, Ra embarked on a terrifying, 12-hour journey through the Jewet, the dark and dangerous underworld. This was a voyage through chaos, past demons and obstacles that threatened to extinguish the light of the world forever. And who was his protector on this perilous journey? A serpent deity named Mehen. Mehen, whose name means the coiled one, is the Ouroboros in action. He is depicted as a gigantic serpent wrapping his body around the solar bark, the boat of Ra, forming a living, impenetrable shield against the forces of dissolution. Here, the serpent eating its own tail becomes a guardian of cosmic order. The circle it forms is a protective barrier, ensuring the cycle completes itself. It guarantees that night will inevitably give way to dawn, that death will always lead to rebirth. This transforms the symbol from a simple loop into a dynamic engine of renewal. The Egyptians saw time not as a straight line, but as a sacred, repeating circuit. The Ouroboros of Mehen was the divine mechanism that made that circuit possible. It was the promise written in the stars and in the daily return of the sun, that existence is a closed, self-sustaining loop. Destruction is not an end, but a necessary phase within the coil, a dark stretch of the underworld journey that must be traversed for the light to be reborn. So at its very origin, The Ouroboros carries this dual power. It is both the cycle and the protector of the cycle. It is the embodiment of eternity, yes, but a specific kind of eternity, one that is actively defended against chaos. This primordial connection plants a seed, the idea that infinity is not passive. It is a struggle, a journey that must be shielded and completed, over and over again. But this ancient Egyptian promise of a protected cycle takes a darker, more complex turn as we move forward in time. When the symbol travels into the Hellenistic world and is adopted by the mysterious Gnostic sects, its meaning twists inward. For the Gnostics, the material universe was not a sacred, repeating dance. It was a tragic mistake, a prison crafted by a flawed and ignorant creator they called the demiurge. Within this worldview, the Ouroboros transformed. It became the ultimate symbol of that prison. The serpent, now often named Aeon, representing boundless time or eternity, coiled around the entirety of the created world. Its body was the very boundary of the material cosmos, and its act of self-consumption represented the closed, inescapable loop of time within that prison. Birth, life, death, and rebirth were not a divine cycle of renewal, but a soul-crushing wheel of forgetfulness, trapping the divine spark within human beings in an endless, meaningless round of suffering and reincarnation. You can see this stark vision captured on small, personal objects, Gnostic amulets, and engraved gems. Here, the Ouroboros often encircles cryptic names of powerful, often terrifying, cosmic rulers, the archons who govern this lower world. The message was clear: to wear this symbol was to carry a map of your own captivity, a reminder that you were living inside the belly of the beast, caught in its perpetual, grinding cycle. Yet, as with all profound symbols, a potent paradox lived within this grim interpretation. By mapping the prison so perfectly, the Ouroboros also hinted at the secret of escape. To know a trap intimately is the first step to dismantling it. If the physical world and linear time were a closed, self-consuming system, then true liberation, gnosis, had to come from something entirely outside that loop, from a transcendent, timeless realm of spirit the serpent could not contain. The symbol thus served a dual purpose. It was both a warning and a key. It graphically illustrated the problem, the soul trapped in the endless coil of material existence, while simultaneously pointing toward the solution, breaking free from the circle entirely. So from the guardian of cosmic order, the Ouroboros becomes the diagram of cosmic confinement, a shift that reveals the symbol's incredible adaptability. It can represent a system you worship and trust, or a system you desperately need to transcend. Its perfect circle contains both the comfort of eternal return and the terror of inescapable repetition. Which side you see depends entirely on your relationship to the wheel of existence itself. Are you a willing participant in the cycle, or a captive desperate to break its hold? This terrifying vision of a cosmic prison, however, was not the symbol's final destination. The Ouroboros was about to undergo its own magnificent transformation, moving from a map of confinement to a manual for liberation. It found its true, enduring home not in tombs or on grim amulets, but in the smoky laboratories and cryptic manuscripts of the alchemists. Here, the serpent was not a warden, but a guide. It became the central emblem of the entire alchemical quest, often inscribed with a powerful, enigmatic motto, hen to pan, one is the all. This simple phrase, paired with the self-consuming circle, unlocked a new dimension of meaning. It declared that everything in the universe, from the densest lump of lead to the highest flight of the human spirit, was interconnected, part of a single living whole. The Ouroboros was the perfect picture of that unity, a closed system where beginning and end were one, where the microcosm and the macrocosm reflected each other perfectly. But for the alchemist, this was not just a pretty philosophy, it was a practical blueprint. The Ouroboros was a direct diagram of the magnum opus, the great work itself. Look at the image, they would say. See the process. The serpent biting its tail represents the essential, volatile spirit of a substance, often called the prima materia or first matter. To achieve the philosopher's stone, This raw material had to be taken on a journey. It had to be dissolved, purified, and reconstituted, not once, but in a repeating, ascending spiral of refinement. The act of the serpent consuming itself is the stage alchemists called solve, to dissolve. The body being digested is the old, impure form, and from that dissolution, a new, more refined body is reborn, the stage called coagula. This was the endless cycle, negrido, the blackening, albedo, the whitening, and rubedo, the reddening, all captured in that single, perpetual motion. Think of it like this: if you wanted to purify gold, you wouldn't just wash it. You would subject it to the most extreme fire, melt it down until it lost all shape, burn away the dross, and then allow it to cool and solidify into a purer, brighter form. The Ouroboros is that entire process in one symbol. It shows the substance willingly entering its own destruction, its own fire, to be reborn superior. This is why the symbol so perfectly illustrated the integration of opposites, the sacred marriage they called the conjunctio. The serpent's body is matter, its consuming head is spirit. The volatile and the fixed, the masculine sulfur and the feminine mercury, all these dualities are united within its endless coil. The path to perfection, the alchemists taught, was not a straight line to a finish, but a circular ascent. You had to return to the beginning again and again, each time at a higher level of understanding and purity. The work was never truly done, because the process was the goal. The Ouroboros whispers that true transformation requires you to consume your own past, your own limitations, and from that nourishment, build a wiser, more complete self. So in the alchemist's flask, the symbol shed its Gnostic despair. It became a promise, a map of hope written in the language of fire and fusion. It said that within the closed system of your own life, within the very cycles that can feel like repetition, lies the secret machinery of your own refinement. The wheel is not just something you are on, it is the tool you use to polish your own soul. The alchemist's promise of cyclical refinement points toward a staggering cosmic truth. If the Ouroboros maps the purification of a single soul or substance, then what does it say about the destiny of the entire cosmos? At its most profound, philosophical level, this symbol becomes a blueprint for reality itself, teaching that life and death are not a straight line with a start and a finish, but two inseparable phases of one continuous, breathing loop. This is the doctrine of the eternal return, and the Ouroboros is its most perfect, silent sermon. Ancient cultures across the globe, seemingly without contact, arrived at this same understanding, that time moves in vast, repeating circles, not in a thin, straight line. They spoke of great years and world ages, immense cycles of birth, flourishing, decay, and dissolution that applied to civilizations, planets, and the universe as a whole. The Hindu concept of the Kalpa, a single day and night in the life of the creator god Brahma, spans billions of our years. The ancient Greeks had the concept of the Great Year, a complete cycle when the planets return to their original alignment, marking the end of one world age and the birth of the next. The Maya calculated their long count calendar with similar cyclical precision. In every case, these were not mere measurements of time, but descriptions of a fundamental cosmic rhythm, a heartbeat on a scale we can barely comprehend. The Ouroboros is the visual shorthand for all of it. Its coiled body is that immense, turning wheel of ages. Its act of self-consumption is the inevitable decay, the cosmic winter, the pulling of all things back into a state of potential. And from that point of maximum contraction, that digested tail, the new head emerges, representing the next spring, the next big bang, the next golden age bursting forth from the silence. Think of it like the ultimate breath of the universe. First, an expansion, a great outward exhale of galaxies and stars and life. Then, a pause, followed by the inward inhale, a gravitational drawing back of all matter and energy into a single, dense point. That point is the tail in the serpent's mouth, and from that singularity, the breath is exhaled once more in a new, perhaps different, but fundamentally similar expression. This is where the symbol moves from philosophy to observable science. We see this Ouroboros logic written in the very stars, A star is born from a cloud of cosmic dust. It lives, burns its fuel, and eventually dies. In its death throes, it explodes in a supernova, scattering enriched elements across the void. That stellar ash becomes the raw material for new stars, new planets, and potentially, new life. The star literally consumes its own existence to seed the next generation. We are, as the famous saying goes, made of star stuff, but that star stuff itself is the recycled remains of a previous cosmic cycle. We are not just in the universe, we are the universe, in a very literal, physical sense, participating in this endless round of transformation. So the Ouroboros challenges our deepest fears about endings. A personal loss, the fall of a civilization, even the theoretical heat death of the universe, from this cyclical perspective, are not final stops. They are necessary turns within the coil, moments of dissolution that make the next act of creation possible. Nothing is truly lost, it is only reconfigured, returned to the source to be remade. The serpent assures us that an ending is always secretly a disguised beginning. It asks us a humbling question: if the cosmos itself operates on this principle of eternal return, then what cycles within your own life, however painful their turning, might be serving a purpose you cannot yet see? This seamless dance of cosmic destruction and creation leads us to the very heart of the Ouroboros' power, a secret hidden in plain sight. The serpent does not just show a cycle, it reveals the fundamental unity of all things we perceive as separate. In that single, elegant circle, life and death are not at war. They are in a state of perfect, eternal harmony. This is the profound teaching of the coincidence oppositorum, the union of opposites, and it is perhaps the symbol's most radical challenge to how we see the world. Look at the image again. The vibrant, living body of the serpent represents vitality, growth, and creation. Yet, that same living body is actively engaged in consuming its own tail, an act that symbolizes decay, ending, and destruction. One creature is performing both actions simultaneously. There is no separation. The life force is the death force, and the death force is what feeds the life force. They are two expressions of the same, singular energy flowing through the closed circuit. This single image dismantles the entire framework of Western dualistic thinking, the idea that the universe is neatly divided into good and evil, light and dark, spirit and matter, with one side meant to triumph over the other. The Ouroboros laughs at that notion. It presents a holistic universe where so-called opposites are not enemies, but essential partners, interdependent and necessary for the whole system to exist and renew itself. You cannot have a circle with only one arc. You cannot have a breath with only an inhale. Think of the most fundamental rhythms of your own existence. Your heartbeat is a continuous pulse of contraction and release. Your waking consciousness depends on the deep, regenerative void of sleep. Even the act of learning requires the death of an old assumption to make room for a new understanding. We see this principle everywhere in nature, once we know how to look. A forest fire, from one perspective, is a terrifying agent of destruction. Yet ecologists understand it as a crucial agent of renewal, clearing old growth, releasing nutrients into the soil, and allowing sunlight to reach the forest floor so a new generation of life can burst forth. The fire is both end and beginning, woven into the same event. The Ouroboros asks us to hold that paradox without flinching. It is the ultimate non-duality teaching in visual form, a silent meditation on the fact that all separation is an illusion of perspective. The head does not hate the tail it consumes. It recognizes the tail as an earlier, denser version of itself, necessary fuel for its continued journey. In this light, every ending in your life loses its absolute, frightening finality. A career change, the close of a relationship, the loss of a dream, these are not mere defeats. They are the tail entering the mouth, a moment of dissolution that contains, within its very structure, the seed of the next beginning. The pain is real, but the Ouroboros suggests the pain itself is part of the circle's integrity, a signal of transformation in motion, not a sign that something has gone wrong. This is why the symbol was so cherished by the alchemists. Their entire work was about marrying the sun and the moon, the king and the queen, sulfur and mercury, to birth a third transcendent thing. The Ouroboros was their diagram for that sacred marriage, showing that the highest unity is not found by choosing one side over another, but by embracing the tension of the whole loop. So the next time you feel torn between two opposing forces within yourself, or witness a stark conflict in the world around you, remember the coiled serpent. It whispers that the resolution may not lie in victory for one side, but in discovering the hidden, larger circle that makes both sides necessary. What if your greatest internal conflict is not a problem to be solved, but the very engine of your own becoming? This profound unity of opposites, this marriage of life and death, finds a startling echo not in ancient temples, but in the modern consulting room. The famous Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung recognized the Ouroboros as something far more than a historical curiosity. He saw it as a living, breathing archetype, a primordial image hardwired into the collective unconscious of all humanity. For Jung, this was not a symbol we learn, but one we are born knowing, a blueprint for the psyche itself. He interpreted the serpent coiled in a circle as a picture of the earliest stage of human psychological development, a pre-egoic state of primal unity. Before a child learns the word I, before it separates itself from its mother in the world, it exists in a kind of oceanic oneness. The Ouroboros captures that perfect, self-contained wholeness, where inside and outside are not yet divided. But Jung went further. He also saw the serpent as a psychopomp, a guide of souls. In this role, the Ouroboros becomes the bridge between our conscious mind, the part of us that thinks and plans and analyzes, and the vast, mysterious realm of the unconscious, the seat of our dreams, instincts, and forgotten memories. The serpent, by forming a loop, creates a channel, a circuit through which these two separated parts of ourselves can communicate. It is the living pathway that allows the raw, symbolic material from the depths to rise up and be integrated into our waking life. This process of integration is the heart of what Jung called individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming a complete, unified self. And here, the Ouroboros is not just a map of the starting point, but of the ultimate goal. To achieve wholeness, Jung taught, we must confront and embrace the contents of our own unconscious, especially the shadow, those rejected and hidden parts of our personality. This is a terrifying, inward journey that feels like self-destruction. It requires us to figuratively consume our own tail, to digest our own past traumas, our denied weaknesses, our inflated self-images. We must allow our old, rigid sense of self to dissolve in order to be reconstituted into something more authentic and complete. The Ouroboros perfectly diagrams this alchemical process of the soul. It shows that true psychological growth is not a linear path of accumulating more knowledge or achievements. It is a circular, often painful, return to the source. You must re-enter your own darkness, your own personal underworld, to reclaim the lost pieces of yourself. The serpent's act of self-consumption is this courageous act of introspection, of facing what you have spent a lifetime trying to avoid. And from that act of psychic digestion, a new, more resilient consciousness is born. This is the self-sufficiency of the circular psyche. A healthy, individuated person is not dependent entirely on the outside world for validation or identity. They possess an inner completeness, a closed circuit of energy where consciousness feeds the unconscious with attention, and the unconscious nourishes consciousness with wisdom and vitality. They have, in a sense, become their own Ouroboros, a self-sustaining system of continuous growth and renewal. So when you dream of serpents or feel trapped in a repeating life pattern, Jung might say you are encountering this archetype. It is your own psyche urging you toward wholeness, presenting you with the very symbol of the transformation you need. The cycle you feel stuck in is not a prison, but the sacred geometry of your own healing. The question then becomes, are you willing to bite your own tail? Jung's journey into the unconscious reveals a timeless dimension within us, a realm untouched by the ticking clock. This brings us to the serpent's most precise and misunderstood meaning, its relationship to time itself. The Ouroboros is not a symbol of time as we typically experience it. It does not represent the frantic, forward march of minutes and hours, the relentless countdown of deadlines and birthdays. That linear, quantitative time has a name, chronos, from which we get words like chronology and chronicle. Chronos is the time we measure, the time that consumes us, the father who devours his children in the old myths, always hungry for the next moment, leaving the past behind as a corpse. The Ouroboros operates on an entirely different plane. It is the living emblem of Aeon. If Chronos is the river flowing in one direction, Aeon is the ocean in which that river ultimately dissolves, and from which all rivers are born. Aeon is deep time, eternal time, cyclical time, the boundless duration in which the cosmos breathes. It is the background against which the drama of Chronos plays out, the stage itself rather than the actors moving across it. The Ouroboros, with its perfect, self-renewing circle, is the signature of Aeon. It shows time not as a line, but as a living loop, without beginning or end, constantly regenerating itself from its own substance. Think of the difference this way. Chronos is the story of a single tree, from a seedling to a mighty oak to a fallen log returning to the soil. Aeon is the story of the forest, the endless cycle of birth, decay, and rebirth that has continued for millennia and will continue for millennia more, where every fallen log nourishes the soil for the next generation of seedlings. The Ouroboros is the forest, not the single tree. It represents the time of species, of planets, of galaxies, the grand, rhythmic pulse that makes the linear timeline of any individual life possible and meaningful. This is why the symbol feels so ancient and so eternal. When you look at it, you are not looking at a clock, you are looking at the principle of time itself, time as a fundamental, circular property of existence. All our mortal events, all the triumphs and tragedies measured by Chronos, are but fleeting patterns drawn on the surface of this deeper, turning wheel. The Serpent quietly teaches that while we live within Chronos, we are ultimately made of Aeon. Our very atoms have cycled through stars and supernova in this eternal round. So the next time you feel crushed by the pressure of linear time, by the anxiety of running out of it, remember the coiled serpent. It offers a profound consolation that you are not just a passenger on a one-way trip, but a participant in an everlasting dance. Your story is a single, beautiful turn within an infinite, self-sustaining spiral. The serpent coiled around the world is not just a philosophical idea in the frozen north. It is a living, breathing monster. In the stark and brutal poetry of Norse mythology, the Ouroboros archetype takes physical form as Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent. Born of the trickster god Loki and the giantess Angerboda, Jormungandr is no abstract symbol. He is a creature of such impossible scale that the gods themselves, in fear, cast him into the great ocean that surrounds the human realm, Midgard. There, in the cold depths, he grew and grew until his body formed a perfect, living ring around all of creation, his tail clamped firmly in his own jaws. This is the Ouroboros made terrifyingly literal, a literal world serpent whose coiled body is the boundary of the known cosmos. He binds the physical world together, not with gentle unity, but with immense, latent pressure. His name, Midgard Serpent, says it all. He is the living belt of the world, the encircler of human reality. In this myth, the cycle is not just a process, it is a prison wall made of scales, and the prisoner is everything that lives. But this Nordic vision adds a crucial, explosive layer to the ancient symbol. Here, the eternal cycle has a built-in breaking point. The peace maintained by Jormungandr's grip is an illusion, a temporary stasis. The prophecies say that when the serpent finally releases his tail, the end of the cycle begins. This event is the trigger for Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. His letting go is the signal for all bonds to break, for chaos to flood back into the world. The seas will boil as he rises from the deep, poison dripping from his fangs, to face his eternal enemy, the thunder god Thor, in a final battle where both are destined to die. This is the Ouroboros with an apocalyptic timer. The circle holds and holds and holds, containing the chaos of the outer ocean. But its purpose is not to protect forever. Its purpose is to build tension, to to store potential energy for one cataclysmic release. The Norse mind saw the universe not as a gently turning wheel, but as a coiled spring. The serpent's self-containment is what allows the world to exist, but that same containment creates the conditions for its own violent end, and here lies the profound twist. In the smoldering ruins after Ragnarok, the myths tell of a new world rising, green and fresh from the sea. A new generation of gods will walk in the sunlight, and 2 human survivors will repopulate the earth. The cycle does not break and vanish. It breaks and resets at a higher, purified level. Jörmungandr's death is not the annihilation of the circle, but the necessary dissolution that makes the next turn of the wheel possible. His release is the salve, the great unbinding, so that a new world can coagula from the ashes. So while the Egyptian Ouroboros guarded the sun's nightly journey and the alchemical one refined the soul, the Norse Ouroboros introduces the concept of necessary catastrophe. It teaches that some cycles cannot renew themselves with gentle turns. Some systems grow so rigid, so burdened with entropy and old strife, that only a shattering upheaval can clear the ground for new growth. The serpent around Midgard asks us a difficult question: what in our own lives or in our world feels like a tense, coiled loop that is holding things together, but whose very tension promises a coming storm? And could that storm, as devastating as it seems, be the only way the circle can finally renew itself? The tension of a coiled spring, the promise of a world reborn from shattering release, finds its most serene and majestic expression in the ancient traditions of India. Here, the cosmic serpent is not a monster of impending doom, but a divine bed of infinite peace. His name is Ananta Shesha, and he is the Ouroboros reimagined as the ultimate foundation of reality itself. Ananta means endless, infinite, without boundary. Shesha means the remainder, that which is left over, that which endures. Together, his name tells the whole story. He is the endless remainder, the infinite substratum that persists when all else has dissolved. In the vast, cyclical drama of Hindu cosmology, the universe does not simply exist forever, it pulses, it breathes. For billions of years, a cosmic day called a kalpa, the universe unfolds in all its glorious complexity, with galaxies, gods, and mortal lives playing out their destinies. Then comes Pralaya, the great dissolution. All forms, all worlds, all names and shapes are drawn back into an unmanifest, potential state, like a cosmic exhale returning to silence. And what remains during this immense, peaceful interval between universes? Ananta Shesha. He is depicted as a colossal, 1,000-headed serpent, floating serenely on the primordial waters of causality. Upon his coiled body, which forms a vast, supportive platform, rests Lord Vishnu, the preserver of cosmic order. Vishnu sleeps in a state of yogic trance, dreaming the blueprint of the next universe into being, while Shesha serves as his divine couch, his canopy of hoods shielding the divine dreamer. This image is the Ouroboros principle in its most sublime form. Shesha's endless coils are not a constricting prison, but a protective, nurturing circle. He is time itself, not as a devourer, but as a supportive bed. He is space, not as a void, but as a tangible presence that holds potential. His 1,000 heads symbolize infinite awareness, witnessing the dissolution and the dreaming alike. Most importantly, he is the remainder. When the entire manifest cosmos is withdrawn, Shesha remains. He is the cosmic memory, the stored information, the latent energy from which the next cycle will unfurl. He is the tail that was consumed, now resting, digesting the experience of the last universe, ready to become the head of the new one. Think of him as the ultimate hard drive of existence. When you turn off your computer, the screen goes black, the program's close. But the information is not lost, it is stored in memory, waiting for the next boot-up sequence. Ananta Shesha is that cosmic memory, the essential data of existence that survives the great shutdown of Pralaya. His connection to the primordial waters is another key. In nearly every creation myth, life emerges from a watery chaos. Shesha, floating on those waters, is the first structure to appear within that chaos, the first coil of order that makes the dream of a new world possible. He is the serpent who is both the boundary and the foundation, the end of one cycle and the necessary precondition for the next. So while the Norse Jormungandr embodies the tension of a cycle about to violently break, Ananta embodies the profound peace between cycles. He represents the deep, restorative silence necessary for a new song to be composed. He solidifies the serpent not as a mere participant in cyclical time, but as its very architecture, the foundational pillar upon which the endless wheel of creation and dissolution turns. This vision asks us to consider the Shesha like spaces in our own lives, those necessary periods of fallow rest, of quiet dissolution after a great effort. What if those seemingly empty intervals are not wasted time, but the sacred, coiled platform upon which your next creation is already being dreamed? The divine serpent Ananta, dreaming new worlds into being, offers a profound clue. That same coiled, creative energy is not just a cosmic force, it is a personal one, sleeping within the very architecture of your own body. This is the secret of Kundalini, and it is where the Ouroboros transforms from a map of the cosmos into a map of you. In the ancient traditions of yoga and tantra, the human body is seen as a microcosm of the universe, containing the same energies and structures that shape the stars. At the base of the spine, coiled 3.5 times around a sacred center, rests a latent, feminine spiritual power. They call it Kundalini, which literally means the coiled one. It is a sleeping serpent of immense potential, and its resting place is no accident. This base energy center is associated with our most primal, earthly instincts, survival, security, and material desire. It is the root, the foundation, the tail of our being. The entire spiritual journey in this system is the awakening and ascension of this serpent. When activated through dedicated practice, breath, or profound experience, Kundalini begins to uncoil and rise. It travels upward through a central channel, piercing and illuminating a series of energy vortices known as chakras, which align along the spine. Each chakra represents a different level of consciousness, from the dense physicality of the root to the boundless unity of the crown at the top of the head. The journey is one of purification and integration, where the raw, primal energy of the tail is refined as it rises, transforming instinct into intuition, desire into compassion, and individual ego into universal awareness. Now look at the Ouroboros again. See the perfect fit. The serpent coiled at the base is Kundalini in its dormant state. The circular path it traces as it consumes its own tail is the very channel, the Sushumna Nadi, through which the energy ascends. The act of the head biting the tail is the moment of awakening, where the lower self, the unconscious, instinctual drives symbolized by the tail, is confronted and consumed by the rising flame of awareness. This is not a destruction, but a transmutation. The energy of the past, of old patterns and primal fears, becomes the fuel for the ascent. The circle completes when the awakened energy reaches the crown, flooding the individual with a sense of oceanic oneness, of being connected to the infinite. In that moment, the circuit of personal consciousness is closed, and the individual becomes a self-sustaining Ouroboros, a complete loop where spirit and matter, higher and lower, are unified within one body. This gives the ancient symbol a breathtakingly practical dimension. It is not merely a philosophical idea to ponder, but a direct schematic for inner work. Meditators and yogis use visualizations of serpents and circles to guide this energy. The rhythmic, circular motion of certain breathing techniques mirrors the serpent's coil, building the internal pressure needed for awakening. The goal is to consciously complete the circuit within yourself, to become the living embodiment of the symbol, where every part of your being is nourished by and connected to the whole. So the next time you sit in stillness, feeling the weight of your own history or the chatter of your mind, remember the coiled serpent at your core. That sense of being stuck, of repeating old cycles, might just be the dormant energy of your own tail, waiting for the conscious breath, the focused intention, to begin its transformative climb. What would it mean to finally complete your own inner circle? This sealed vessel, this perfect loop, was the alchemist's greatest ambition. To achieve the philosopher's stone, they knew they could not just mix ingredients. They had to create a miniature, self-contained universe inside their flask, a closed system where transformation could feed upon itself endlessly. The Ouroboros was not just a symbol for this, it was the literal diagram of the most crucial technique, the circulatio. Imagine a sealed glass vessel, shaped sometimes like two flasks connected in a loop. Inside, the prima materia, the first matter, is heated. It vaporizes, rises to the top of the vessel, cools and condenses back into a liquid, and then drips down to be heated once more. This process repeats over and over for weeks, months, sometimes even years. The substance is in a constant state of flux, cycling between the volatile and the fixed, between spirit and body, between dissolution and coagulation. With each pass through the cycle, it is believed to become more refined, more purified, more potent. The serpent biting its tail is this exact process captured in a single, timeless image. The rising vapor is the head, the active, spiritual force. The condensing liquid returning to the source is the tail, the material body being reabsorbed. The circle they form is the glass vessel itself, the sealed boundary that makes the entire transformative miracle possible. Nothing enters, nothing leaves. All change happens from within. This is why the Ouroboros represented the alchemist's ideal state. It depicted a system that had achieved perfect internal balance and self-sufficiency. It was the picture of a process that had become self-sustaining, where the energy of transformation was generated by the cycle itself, requiring no external fuel beyond the initial heat. For the alchemist, this was the secret of true and lasting change, whether in lead or in the soul. Real transmutation could not be imposed from the outside. It had to arise from an internal revolution, a continuous, circular dialogue between all the opposing parts of one's being. This is where the laboratory work became a mirror for the inner work. The alchemist watching the circulatio in their flask was also practicing a profound form of internal reflection. Just as the substance was sealed in glass, the seeker was to turn their attention inward, sealing themselves off from the distractions of the world to observe the endless cycle of their own thoughts, emotions, and memories. The process of self-purification was not a one-time event. It was this same circulatio of the psyche. You must allow your own fears and flaws, your own past actions and hidden shames, to rise into the light of your awareness. You must look at them, condense them into understanding, and then allow that understanding to drip back down, to be reabsorbed into your being, not as poison, but as wisdom. This is the necessity of self-consumption. The Ouroboros does not suggest a gentle evolution. It shows a creature actively digesting its own past form. The alchemical journey demands you do the same. You must be willing to take the raw material of your own lived experience, especially the painful, difficult parts, and subject it to the inner fire of honest scrutiny. You must break it down, distill its essence, and integrate it back into who you are becoming. Each time you do this, you complete one turn of the inner circulatio. You refine your own character, not by adding something new from the outside, but by endlessly recycling and purifying what is already within you. The closed vessel is your commitment to the work. The heat is your conscious attention, and the serpent, forever consuming and renewing itself, is the promise that within that perfect, sealed circle of self-reflection, true gold is patiently waiting to be born. This inner alchemy, this circulatio of the soul, brings us face to face with our own most personal darkness. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow is not a monster under the bed. It is the unclaimed baggage of our own psyche, the collection of every trait, impulse, and memory we have ever deemed unacceptable and shoved into the basement of our awareness. It is our selfishness, our cowardice, our envy, our rage, all the parts of ourselves we refuse to see in the mirror. And the Ouroboros gives us the perfect, unsettling picture of how to deal with it. The serpent's head, bright and aware, represents our conscious identity, the person we believe ourselves to be. The tail it consumes is that very shadow, the denied and forgotten self. The act of biting the tail is not an act of aggression, but of integration. It is the courageous, conscious decision to turn around and face what has been following you all along. We spend most of our lives running from this tail. We project our own flaws onto others, seeing in them the anger or pettiness we cannot admit in ourselves. We construct a polished, acceptable persona to show the world, while the shadow grows heavier and more powerful in the dark, often sabotaging our best intentions in subtle, bewildering ways. A sudden, disproportionate outburst over a minor slight, a pattern of self-sabotage just as success is within reach, an irrational dislike of someone who possesses a trait we secretly share. These are the shadow's fingerprints. It is the tail trying to get the head's attention. The Ouroboros proposes a radical alternative to this endless, exhausting evasion. Wholeness, what Jung called individuation, is not achieved by shining a brighter light only on our virtues. It is achieved by deliberately bringing the dark tail into the light of consciousness and making it part of the circle. This is the painful but necessary work of self-consumption. To integrate your shadow, you must first acknowledge its existence. You must be willing to look at your own pettiness, your own capacity for deceit, your own hidden fears, without immediately justifying or condemning them. This feels like self-destruction because it dismantles the clean, simple story you have told about who you are. It requires you to digest the uncomfortable truth that you contain multitudes, including aspects that are directly contrary to your self-image. The kindest person has a reservoir of cruelty. The most confident soul harbors a deep well of insecurity. The head must consume the tail, not to destroy it, but to absorb its energy and its truth. Think of it this way, that anger you suppress is not just negativity, it is raw power, a fierce energy for setting boundaries. That envy you feel is not just pettiness, it is a distorted signal pointing toward a genuine, unfulfilled desire within you. By consuming the tail, you are not becoming a worse person. You are reclaiming your lost vitality and completing your own circuit. The reward for this difficult work is profound self-sufficiency and authenticity. A person who has integrated their shadow is no longer at the mercy of unconscious triggers. They own their darkness, so it can no longer own them. They become more resilient, more compassionate toward themselves and others, because they recognize the human struggle in everyone. They become like the Ouroboros itself, a closed, self-sustaining system. Their energy is no longer wasted on hiding parts of themselves. It all flows within one complete, acknowledged circle. The serpent's lesson is clear: you cannot outrun your own tail. The only path to peace is to turn, meet its gaze, and finally make it part of the journey. What part of your own shadow is most hungry to be seen? This act of inner integration, of completing your own psychic circuit, finds its expression in stone in sacred space. The perfect, self-contained circle of the Ouroboros did not remain a mere drawing. It became a blueprint for the very structures we built to touch the divine. Across cultures, the desire to create a boundary between the sacred and the profane, to define a complete and protected system, gave rise to architectural echoes of the eternal serpent. Think of the simplest and most profound of these, the circle drawn on the ground. From ancient stone circles like Stonehenge to the ritual circles cast in ceremonial magic, this act creates a temenos, a sacred cutout from the ordinary world. It is a deliberate echo of the Ouroboros coil, establishing a perimeter that says, inside here, the rules are different. Inside here, time is cyclical, energy is contained, and the journey is one of return. This circle is not just a fence, it is a living boundary that both protects what is within and defines a realm where transformation can safely occur, just as the serpent's body contains and enables its own renewal. This principle blossoms into breathtaking complexity in the mandalas of Hindu and Buddhist traditions. A mandala is, at its heart, a geometric depiction of the cosmos, a symbolic palace for deities, and a map for meditation. And almost invariably, it is enclosed within a perfect, concentric circle. This outer ring is the Ouroboros moment. It represents the boundaries of the manifested universe, the rim of the wheel of existence, the protective edge that holds the entire intricate system together. The meditator's journey is to travel visually from the outer periphery, through the layered gates and geometric patterns, to the singular, still point at the absolute center. But here is the secret the Ouroboros understands. Reaching that center is not an escape from the circle. It is a return to the source from which the entire circle emanated. The journey out is the journey in. The labyrinth, that ancient design found from Crete to medieval cathedrals, makes this truth physical. Unlike a maze, which is designed to confuse with dead ends, a classic labyrinth has a single, winding but unambiguous path. You walk its circuitous route, turning back on yourself, seeming to move away from the center only to swing closer in a slow, inevitable coil. Your walking body traces the serpent's loop. And when you finally arrive at the central rosette, you have not traveled a straight line to a finish, you have completed a circuit. You have, in a very literal sense, consumed the path to arrive at the heart. The return journey, retracing your steps outwards, completes the second half of the Ouroboros, integrating the center's stillness back into the world of motion. These structures all whisper the same wisdom, that sacred space is cyclical space. A straight line belongs to conquest and commerce, to Chronos, but a circle, a ring, a labyrinth, belongs to Aeon, to the timeless. They are tools to trick the linear mind into experiencing the loop. When you walk a labyrinth, you cannot rush to the goal, you must surrender to the turns. The architecture itself forces you to enact the paradox of the serpent, where every step away is also a step toward, where the boundary of the path is what makes the revelation at the center possible. The Ouroboros is the ultimate boundary maker, and in doing so, it creates the only kind of space where true transformation can live, a space where endings feed beginnings, and the periphery exists only to define and protect the journey to the core. So the next time you see a circular window in a church, a mandala in a book, or even a simple ring on a finger, remember the coiled serpent. These are not just shapes, they are silent invitations to enter the loop, to walk the boundary that leads you back always to yourself. But the journey of this serpentine idea may have begun even earlier than the Egyptian tombs. To find a deeper, more primal layer, we must travel back further, to the land between the rivers, to the ancient myths of Mesopotamia. Here we encounter not a protective coil, but a monstrous, primordial abyss given form. Her name is Tiamat. In the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, Tiamat is the saltwater ocean, the personification of chaos itself. She is a vast, serpentine dragon, a mother of monsters who existed before the gods, before order, before anything we would recognize as a world. She is the formless, churning potential from which all things must eventually emerge. And her story, while not a perfect match for the Ouroboros, carves a crucial channel for the symbol's ultimate meaning. Tiamat is not a circle. She is the undifferentiated everything, the boundless, teeming womb of chaos. The myth tells of a great cosmic war. The younger gods, born from the mingling of Tiamat's waters with the fresh waters of her consort Apsu, grow restless and loud. Their noise disturbs the primal quiet of the old ones. After Apsu is slain for plotting to kill them, Tiamat, in a furious grief, gives birth to an army of horrific serpents and monsters to wage war on the new generation of gods. She is chaos rising to reclaim its own. The gods are terrified. None can face her, until one of them, Marduk, steps forward, but only on the condition that he be made their supreme king. With winds and a net, a bow and arrows, he confronts the colossal dragon. He shoots an arrow into her gaping mouth, the winds inflate her body, and he splits her carcass in two like a clamshell. From one half of her body, he fashions the dome of the heavens. From the other half, he creates the foundation of the earth. Her weeping eyes become the sources of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Her monstrous allies are captured and made to serve the new cosmic order. This is a different kind of creation story. It is not a gentle emergence from a void, but a violent imposition of order upon chaos. The serpentine form of Tiamat is not a protective guardian or a self-renewing cycle. She is the raw, untamed material of existence that must be divided, structured, and bounded to make a world possible. So how does this connect to our coiled serpent? Tiamat reinforces the serpent's most fundamental role, as the embodiment of the primal cosmic force. She is the ultimate tail, the primordial state of undivided unity that must be confronted and transformed. The Ouroboros often represents that same undifferentiated state, the perfect, self-contained unity before duality. But while the Ouroboros holds that state in a balanced, eternal loop, Tiamat represents it as a terrifying, active threat to order that must be decisively broken. One shows the state, the other shows the necessary act of creation that comes from shattering that state. The influence is likely not direct, but parallel. These ancient cultures were grappling with the same awe-inspiring questions. Where did the world come from? What existed before? And they repeatedly envisioned the answer in serpentine form. A great, watery, dragon-like being that contained all possibilities. The Egyptians internalized this as the protective, cyclical Ouroboros that ensured the sun's rebirth. The Mesopotamians externalized it as the chaotic Tiamat, who had to be defeated to make space for a stable world. Both visions cement the serpent as the archetypal symbol of the formless source. Tiamat is the abyss that must be divided to create a circle with an inside and an outside. The Ouroboros is that same circle, now perfected, showing the abyss contained and perpetually feeding itself. One is the story of the circle's violent birth from chaos. The other is the portrait of the circle in its mature, eternal state. Together, they tell the complete story of the serpent's cosmic resume, from the monstrous mother of all to the elegant diagram of eternity itself. That perfect circle, drawn by a serpent's body, is not merely a poetic shape. It is a precise mathematical truth. From a purely formal perspective, the Ouroboros is a closed curve, a one-dimensional loop with no beginning and no end. In the language of topology, it is a simple, continuous path that returns to its starting point, creating an inside and an outside. This is not an artistic choice, it is a geometric necessity for the symbol to convey its core message of eternity. There is no point of entry or exit on that line, it just is. This mathematical purity transforms the serpent into a living equation for infinity, a visual representation of a process that loops back on itself forever. It is the embodiment of a self-referential system, where the output of the process becomes the input for the next cycle, ad infinitum. Think of it like the number pi. Pi is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, and its decimal expansion goes on forever without repeating. We can calculate more and more digits, but we will never reach an end, never find a final, neat conclusion. The Ouroboros is the picture of that endless, non-terminating process. A snake chasing the digits of its own existence in a loop it can never catch because it is the loop. This idea of self-generation, of something creating itself from its own substance, is a profound philosophical puzzle. How can a thing be its own cause? The serpent answers not with words, but with a shape. It shows a system that requires nothing from outside itself to continue. Its energy, its substance, its very existence is perpetually recycled from within. This mirrors one of the deepest questions about our universe. Is the cosmos a self-contained system? Did it arise from some external cause, or is it, like the Ouroboros, a closed loop of cause and effect that has always been? While science seeks the mechanisms of the Big Bang, the symbol presents the elegant, haunting possibility of a universe that is its own parent and its own child, a self-birthing, self-sustaining whole. This reverence for geometric perfection is ancient. Long before the Ouroboros was named, the Pythagoreans of ancient Greece taught that number and geometry were the hidden language of reality. They believed the cosmos was built from perfect mathematical forms, and the circle was the most divine of all, symbolizing unity, completeness, and the heavens themselves. To them, discovering the geometric ratios in music or the orbits of planets was to read the mind of the divine. The Ouroboros, in its flawless circularity, is a direct descendant of this Pythagorean vision. It proposes that the blueprint of existence is not a chaotic scrawl, but a perfect, self-referential curve. The serpent is not just a creature, it is a cosmic diagram, suggesting that the laws which govern the spin of galaxies and the orbits of electrons are the same laws that govern the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. They are all expressions of the same eternal return, the same closed loop written in different scales. So when you look at the Ouroboros, you are not just looking at a myth. You are looking at a primitive yet precise model of a self-generating universe, a topological map of infinity drawn with the body of a snake. It begs a quiet question: if the cosmos is truly a closed curve, where on the loop are we right now? The mathematical perfection of a self-generating circle finds its ultimate purpose in the secret chambers of initiation. Within the hallowed traditions of Hermeticism and the solemn rites of esoteric orders like Freemasonry, the Ouroboros is not just a symbol of cosmic cycles, it is the very blueprint for transmitting wisdom itself. Here, the serpent becomes the guardian of a living tradition, a visual covenant that the most profound truths must never be lost to time. Hermetic philosophy, with its foundational principle as above, so below, sees the universe as a series of correspondences, where the macrocosm of the stars reflects the microcosm of the human soul. The Ouroboros, in its perfect self-containment, is the ultimate expression of this law. It shows that the journey of the cosmos and the journey of the initiate are the same journey, a closed loop of descent into matter and ascent back to spirit. The symbol whispers that the secret knowledge of the universe is not something out there to be found, but something within, to be recovered through a process of turning inward, of consuming one's own ignorance to be reborn in understanding. This is where the symbol takes on a deeply practical human dimension. In orders that practice initiation, knowledge is not simply given in a book, it is passed, person to person, through cycles of ritual and revelation. The Ouroboros maps this sacred transmission. The tail represents the ancient wisdom, the accumulated teachings of all the masters who have come before. It is the dense, historical body of the tradition. The head, actively consuming that tail, is the new initiate, the seeker who must grasp, internalize, and ultimately revitalize those ancient truths for their own generation. The act of biting is the initiatory ordeal itself, the process where the candidate confronts the past, digests its lessons, and makes them alive again. Without this continual act of consumption, the tradition becomes a dead relic, a fossilized tale with no head to give it purpose. You can see this covenant etched in silver and woven into fabric. The Ouroboros often appears on the regalia of high-degree initiates, on ceremonial tracing boards, or engraved upon the tools used in ritual. It might coil around a compass and square, or encircle a single all-seeing eye. In these contexts, it serves as a constant, silent reminder to the bearer. It says, you are now part of this unbroken circle. The wisdom you have received is not yours to hoard. It is yours to steward, to consume fully so that you may, in turn, become nourishment for those who will follow. The circle is both a boundary and a bond, defining the inner community of those who have undergone the transformation, while simultaneously depicting the endless flow of that transformative energy from one generation to the next. This transforms the symbol from a passive illustration into an active vow, to where the Ouroboros is to accept a responsibility within the eternal return. You are agreeing to become a living link, to ensure that the head of present understanding never loses its vital connection to the tail of ancestral knowledge. The loop must remain unbroken. The work of self-refinement you undertake as an initiate is not for yourself alone. It is your service to the continuity of the light itself. So the serpent in the lodge or the Hermetic text asks a profound question of the seeker. Are you willing to be both the consumed and the consumer, to honor the past so completely that you become the vehicle for its future? This promise of renewal is written in the serpent's very biology. A snake outgrows its old skin, a rigid, confining layer that once served as protection but has now become a prison for its growth. To continue living, it must perform a radical act of self-abandonment. It finds a rough surface, rubs its snout against it, and begins the slow, vulnerable process of slithering out of its entire past self, leaving behind a perfect, translucent ghost of what it once was. This is not a metaphor invented by philosophers. It is a physical fact of the creature's existence. And when this undeniable truth of nature is fused with the Ouroboros, the symbol's message about immortality becomes breathtakingly clear. True immortality is not about a single body or a single consciousness persisting unchanged for eternity. That would be a kind of living death, a static existence trapped in an unyielding form. Instead, the Ouroboros, through the act of shedding, teaches that immortality is a dynamic process. It is the continuous renewal and transformation of form, the perpetual ability to leave behind what no longer serves and emerge reborn. The old skin is the tail being consumed, the act of shedding is the bite itself, and the glistening new serpent that emerges is the head, born from the digestion of its own past limitation. One cycle of life is literally consumed to fuel the next. This resolves a great human paradox. We yearn for eternity, for something of us to last beyond the decay we witness all around us. Yet we also crave growth, change, and new experience. The Ouroboros, through the lens of the shed skin, says you can have both, but not in the way you might think. Your immortality lies not in the preservation of your current self, but in your capacity for metamorphosis. Each time you shed an old belief, a former identity, a past hurt that is hardened around you, you are enacting this serpentine ritual. You are performing the symbolic death necessary for new life to emerge. Think of a forest, not as a collection of individual trees, but as a single, living entity over centuries. An ancient oak falls and returns to the earth. It does not vanish. Its body decomposes, feeding the soil with nutrients. From that rich humus, a new sapling pushes toward the light, drawing its very substance from the body of the giant that came before. The forest is immortal, not because any one tree lives forever, but because the cycle of death and rebirth is unbroken. The forest is the Ouroboros, the fallen log is the shed skin. The new growth is the serpent's renewed head. This principle whispers to us in every ending we face. The close of a chapter in your life, whether chosen or forced upon you, feels like a death. And it is the shedding of a skin you have lived in. The vulnerability that follows, that raw, tender feeling of being newly exposed to the world, is exactly the sensation of the serpent just after it has emerged. It is sensitive, it is unsure, but it is also alive in a way it hasn't been for a long time, capable of sensing the world anew. The Ouroboros assures us that this vulnerable phase is not a mistake or a failure. It is the essential, transformative gap between the old cycle closing and the new one beginning. It is the moment the tail is in the mouth, being digested into potential. So immortality, in the deepest sense taught by this coiled symbol, is not about defying the cycle. It is about surrendering to it with such grace and awareness that you become the cycle itself. You become the endless turn of shedding and renewal, where every ending is recognized as the disguised beginning of your next form. What old skin are you still carrying? Simply because you haven't found the courage to leave its empty shell behind. That glistening new skin, born from the discarded husk, reveals a secret that the alchemists encoded into their most shocking motto. In stercor invenitor, it is found in the filth. At first glance, this phrase seems deliberately repulsive, a vulgar joke hidden in sacred texts. But paired with the Ouroboros, it becomes the ultimate key to the entire work. The serpent does not choose a beautiful, noble part of itself to consume. It bites its own tail, the very end, the part that is dragged through the mud, that is worn and soiled by the journey. This is the alchemical principle in its rawest form. The most precious substance, the philosopher's stone, the gold of spiritual enlightenment, is not discovered by reaching for something pure and distant. It is extracted, through a terrifyingly intimate process, from the very material you most wish to discard. The tail is the stercus, the dung. It represents everything in our lives we deem worthless, shameful, or base. Our failures, our humiliations, our petty resentments, our secret fears, our physical limitations. All the psychological and experiential refuse we try to bury. The Ouroboros does not suggest we avoid this material. It commands us to consume it, to bring that rejected filth into the center of our being and subject it to the digestive fires of conscious awareness. Why? Because within that rejected tail lies the concentrated energy, the unrefined potential, for your own transformation. An alchemist would look at a pile of manure and see not waste, but latent fertility, the compressed possibility of future growth. In the same way, that painful memory you refuse to examine, that character flaw you hide from the world, that period of your life you label a mistake, this is not garbage to be disposed of. It is your prima materia, your first matter. It is the only raw material you truly own, the substance from which your personal gold must be forged. The motto teaches that value is not inherent in the material itself, but is created through the process applied to it. A lump of lead and a lump of gold ore might look equally dull to the untrained eye. The difference is revealed only in the crucible, under extreme heat. Your most humiliating failure, when placed in the crucible of honest reflection, can yield the pure gold of resilience and self-knowledge. A period of deep depression, when subjected to the slow fire of introspection, can distill into a profound compassion for the suffering of others. The field is not the obstacle to the treasure, it is the treasure in its most disguised state. This is the serpent's most demanding lesson. We spend so much energy trying to present a polished head to the world, while disowning the tail that trails behind us. We curate our lives to hide the mess, but the Ouroboros says wholeness is impossible without integrating that shadowy, messy end. You must be willing to metabolize your own past, your own darkness, your own manure. The act of biting the tail is this courageous, often revolting, act of self-acceptance. It is saying, this too is me. I will not cut it off and pretend it doesn't exist. I will take it in, and through the alchemy of my own spirit, transmute its weight into wisdom. Think of a compost heap. Kitchen scraps, yard waste, things we consider rotten and useless are piled together. Left alone, it's just a mound of garbage, but within that dark, warm, decomposing mass, a miracle occurs. Bacteria and fungi break down the old forms, releasing nutrients and creating rich, black humus. That humus is then used to nourish new, vibrant life. The compost is the stercus. The fertile soil it becomes is the found gold. Your most difficult experiences are the scraps in your psychological compost pile. The work of integration is the patient, unseen decomposition, turning that emotional waste into the fertile ground from which your future growth will spring. So the next time you encounter a part of yourself or your past that fills you with shame, remember the alchemist's shocking motto and the serpent's endless meal. That which you reject most fiercely may be the very ingredient you lack to complete your own sacred circle. What hidden fertility lies buried in the parts of your story you've been trying to forget? This protective circle, this sacred boundary, is the serpent's most ancient duty. Long before it became a symbol of personal transformation, the coiled creature served as a living fence, a guardian marking the line between the safe, known world and the formless chaos that lies beyond all understanding. The Ouroboros in its ultimate form does not just encircle an idea, it encircles everything. Like Jormungandr coiling around Midgard, its body becomes the very wall of the cosmos. Inside that living loop is order, cycles, life, and meaning. Outside is the boundless, undifferentiated abyss, the primal soup of Tiamat before it was split to form heaven and earth. The serpent's act of self-containment is therefore an act of cosmic defense. It is drawing a line in the sand of eternity and saying, here, within this circle, reality can exist. This is why the symbol so often guards the most precious things. In ancient Egyptian tombs, it protected the journey of the sun god. On Gnostic gems, it encircled the names of terrifying powers, perhaps not to honor them, but to bind and contain their influence. The circle it forms is a magical seal, a container that prevents the sacred energy within from leaking out, and the chaotic forces without from rushing in. Think of a medieval map, where the edges of the known world are often drawn with the warning, here be dragons. The Ouroboros is that dragon, but it is drawn not at the edge of the map, but as the edge itself. It is the monster that is the boundary. By defining a limit, it creates the possibility of an interior, a sanctuary, and within any sanctuary, hidden things can be kept safe. This makes the serpent the ultimate guardian of esoteric knowledge, secret teachings, initiatory wisdom, the formulas for inner alchemy. These are not meant for the chaotic marketplace of ordinary opinion. They are fragile seeds that require a specific, protected environment to grow. The Ouroboros symbolizes that environment. It represents the sealed vessel of the alchemist, the closed circle of the initiated lodge, the private meditation chamber of the mystic. These are all bounded spaces, set apart from the profane world, where the delicate process of transformation can occur without interference. The knowledge itself becomes the treasure at the center of the coiled guardian. To reach it, you must first understand and respect the boundary. You cannot storm the circle, you must be invited within it, often by proving you are willing to face the guardian, to confront the paradox of the serpent itself. This is why initiation rites so often involve symbolic death and rebirth, a journey through the serpent's maw. You are passing through the boundary, being digested by its mystery, to be reborn inside the sacred space it protects. The boundary, therefore, is not a barrier meant to exclude forever, but a filter, a threshold of transformation. The serpent does not just hide the knowledge, it tests the seeker. It asks, are you willing to consume your own ignorance, to shed your old skin of assumptions, to become someone new who can be trusted with what lies within the circle? In this role, the Ouroboros becomes the delimiter of the only kind of space where true change is possible. A temenos where the rules of linear time and ordinary logic are suspended. Inside its coil, the endless circulatio of the alchemist can proceed. Inside its coil, the meditator can journey to the center of the mandala and return. The boundary creates the necessary container for the cycle to complete itself. So the next time you seek to change something profound in your life, consider the serpent's lesson. Lasting transformation rarely happens in the middle of the noisy, unbounded chaos of everyday distraction. It requires you to draw a circle, to define a sacred space and time, however small, where you are both the guardian and the thing being guarded. What chaotic noise do you need to place outside your circle, so the quiet work within can finally begin? That sacred, protective circle is no longer drawn only in sand or stone. It is now rendered in pixels and code, a testament to the Ouroboros' stubborn refusal to be confined to the past. Our digital age, for all its linear logic and forward thrust, is quietly built upon the same eternal loops the ancients carved into temple walls. You see it every day, perhaps without even realizing. The universal symbol for recycling, that familiar triangle of three chasing arrows, is a direct descendant of the coiled serpent. It is a modern mandala for a cyclical process, a perfect, closed system where waste is not an end, but the raw material for a new beginning. A plastic bottle is collected, broken down, melted, and reformed into a new product, completing one turn of an industrial Ouroboros. The symbol itself is a loop, visually guiding the eye in a circle, teaching us through simple graphics what the alchemists knew in their bones, that everything can be returned to the source and remade. This is not a coincidence of design. It is the reactivation of an ancient archetype for a modern crisis. We are being asked, visually, to remember the serpent's lesson, to see our trash not as a final stop, but as a tale waiting to be consumed and transformed. This principle becomes even more powerful and precise in the realm of systems theory, where the concept of the feedback loop is fundamental. A feedback loop is exactly what it sounds like. The output of a system loops back around to become an input, influencing the next cycle of operation. Think of your home's thermostat. It measures the temperature, the output, and feeds that information back to the furnace, the input, instructing it to turn on or off to maintain a set range. This is a self-regulating, closed circuit of information and action, a perfect digital age Ouroboros. The system consumes data about its own state to adjust its own behavior, forever chasing the tail of perfect balance. These loops are everywhere once you know how to look. In biology, your body uses hormonal feedback loops to maintain everything from blood sugar to sleep cycles. In economics, consumer demand influences production, which in turn influences demand. In social media, the algorithms that shape what you see are giant, complex feedback loops, using your past clicks and likes, your digital tail, to determine what content to feed you next, the head of your future experience. These are not mere metaphors, they are the mathematical and structural expressions of the serpent's eternal coil. They prove that cyclical, self-referential processes are not mystical ideas, but the fundamental mechanics of stable, adaptive systems, from a single cell to a global network. What is truly staggering is that our ancestors, without satellites or supercomputers, intuitively grasped this core truth of existence. They observed the cycles of the seasons, the stars, and their own lives, and they synthesized that observation into the elegant, universal form of the Ouroboros. They understood in their bones that reality is not a collection of straight lines but a web of interdependent circles. The serpent was their model for systems dynamics, a pre-scientific diagram showing that health and sustainability come from closure, from processes that renew themselves from within. When a medieval alchemist drew the Ouroboros around his apparatus, he was not just making a spiritual statement, he was outlining a technical requirement for his experiment, the necessity of a sealed, self-contained system. Today, an engineer designing a life support system for a space station or a closed-loop aquaponics farm is solving the same problem: how to create a perfect, self-sustaining circle where waste becomes food and endings fuel new beginnings. The symbols have changed, from serpents to schematics, but the underlying architecture of thought remains identical. The Ouroboros persists because the reality it describes persists. It is the eternal shape of anything that hopes to endure. So the next time you drag a file to the recycling bin on your desktop, or adjust the thermostat, or even feel caught in a loop of your own habits, remember you are interacting with the oldest pattern in the world. You are touching the coils of the serpent, now woven into the very fabric of our constructed reality, still teaching its silent lesson of return. The serpent's coil is not an empty ring. At the very center of its protective circle, many ancient artists placed a single, radiant egg. This is the cosmic egg, and its pairing with the Ouroboros reveals the ultimate purpose of the boundary. The serpent does not exist to merely contain chaos, it exists to nurture the seed of the next world. In the Orphic mysteries of ancient Greece, the universe began from a silver egg, laid by the goddess Nyx, the night, in the boundless lap of chaos. The egg split, and from its halves emerged the heavens and the earth. But in some depictions, this primordial egg is not floating in a void. It is held securely within the perfect circle of a serpent's body. The Ouroboros becomes the living nest, the incubator for all of creation. This image condenses a staggering cosmic truth into a single, elegant form. The egg represents pure, undifferentiated potential. It is the totality of what could be, all the laws of physics, all the forms of life, all the stories yet untold, packed into a state of perfect latency. It is the universe before the Big Bang, the silence before the first note of a symphony, the dream before it takes shape in the mind, and what holds this unimaginable potential. Time itself, in the form of the eternal serpent. The Ouroboros is the boundary of infinite time, aeon, that wraps around this seed of possibility. Its circular body creates the necessary vessel, the closed system where the egg can safely gestate. Without this boundary, the potential would simply dissipate into the formless abyss. The serpent's self-consumption here takes on a new, gentle meaning. It is not just a cycle of destruction and rebirth, but an act of focused incubation. The energy of its endless loop is channeled inward, warming the egg, providing the stable, rhythmic environment necessary for it to mature. The serpent is both the guardian and the womb. This transforms our understanding of the symbol's role. It is not merely a map of an existing cycle, but a picture of the moment between cycles, the pregnant pause where everything is being prepared. The tail in the mouth is the old universe fully digested, its essence now condensed into the egg at the center. The head is the new universe already forming, ready to hatch and begin its own expansive journey, only to one day be drawn back into the coil again. Think of a seed buried in the earth. The seed is the egg, containing the entire blueprint for a mighty tree. The soil around it is the serpent, the dark, nurturing boundary that holds moisture, regulates temperature, and protects it from predators. The seed cannot sprout without that surrounding embrace. In the same way, the cosmic egg cannot hatch without the serpent's coil. This vision elevates the Ouroboros from a participant in the cycle to the very architect of cyclicality. It is the mechanism that allows one world to end and another to begin, not as a random explosion, but as a deliberate, nurtured rebirth. The potential for the new is always contained within the dissolution of the old. The serpent assures us that the end of our world, the end of an age, or the end of a personal life chapter, is never a blank nothingness. It is always a state of maximum potential, an egg being readied in the dark. All the wisdom, all the experience, all the love and loss of the previous cycle is compacted into that central point, being refined and reorganized for its next expression. So when you find yourself in a fallow period, a time when nothing seems to be happening, when old structures have fallen away and the new has not yet appeared, remember the egg in the serpent's coil. That emptiness is not a void. It is the most potent space of all, the sacred container where your next creation is silently gathering its strength, waiting for the precise moment to crack its shell and begin. The egg at the center of the serpent's coil holds a universe of possibility, but it also poses a terrifying question. If everything is part of a predetermined, endless loop, where is our freedom? The Ouroboros, in its perfect, self-contained geometry, seems to illustrate the ultimate prison of fate. If the serpent's path is fixed, if the head must always meet the tail in an endless, mechanical repetition, then are our lives nothing more than predetermined points on a wheel we cannot steer. This is the ancient philosophical battle between fate and free will, and the coiled serpent stands at its very center, representing both sides of the argument. On one hand, the symbol can be seen as the picture of inescapable destiny. The circle is closed, the path is set, every rise implies a fall, every creation a destruction, every birth a death. From this perspective, our struggles, our choices, our triumphs, they are all just scripted acts in a cosmic play that has been performed an infinite number of times before, and will be performed an infinite number of times again. It is a vision of cosmic determinism, where even our feeling of making a choice is just another turn of the wheel. This interpretation can feel crushing, a beautiful but absolute negation of human agency. Yet, the other side of the symbol offers a radically different, and far more liberating, possibility. The Ouroboros does not just show a circle, it shows a process. And the key to freedom lies in the nature of that process. The serpent is not a passive train on a circular track. It is an active participant in its own renewal. It chooses, moment by moment, to consume its own past. This act is not forced, it is necessary for its continued existence. This shifts the entire meaning of the cycle. Understanding the pattern is not a sentence to passive submission. It is the first and most crucial step toward conscious participation. Think of it like the seasons. The cycle of spring, summer, fall, and winter is fated in a broad sense. We cannot stop winter from coming, but within that cycle, we possess immense freedom. Knowing winter is coming, we can choose to prepare. We can store food, build a shelter, or even learn to appreciate the stark beauty of the cold. We can curse the falling leaves, or we can see them as a necessary release, making way for next year's buds. Our freedom is not in changing the cycle, but in changing our relationship to it. The Ouroboros teaches the same principle on a cosmic scale. The cycles of history, of civilization, of personal growth and decay may have a predictable rhythm. But our role within them is not predetermined. We can be asleep to the pattern, buffeted by its turns, feeling like victims of an impersonal fate. Or we can awaken to the pattern, study its movements, and learn to work with its energy. This is the alchemical promise. The alchemists did not seek to break the laws of nature, but to understand them so deeply that they could cooperate with them to achieve transformation. They saw the circulatio in their flask, the endless cycle of evaporation and condensation, not as a prison, but as the very tool of liberation. By consciously participating in that cycle, by applying heat at the right moment and allowing cooling at another, they guided the process toward a specific goal, the creation of gold. Your life is that flask. The repeating patterns, your habits, your emotional reactions, the types of relationships you attract, are your personal circulatio. When you are unconscious of them, you are a slave to that cycle, doomed to repeat the same mistakes, the same pains, the same triumphs and disappointments forever. This feels like fate, but the moment you become aware of the pattern, you introduce the possibility of freedom. You see the serpent's head moving toward its tail. And in that space of awareness, you have a choice. You can let the bite happen on autopilot, repeating the old story, or with conscious effort, you can guide the bite. You can choose what from your past you truly need to consume and transform, and what you can finally release. This is the transcendence within the cycle. It is not an escape from the wheel, but a movement to its hub. At the outer edge of a spinning wheel, the motion is frantic, dizzying, but at the still point at the center, there is peace and clarity. To reach that center, you must move inward through the cycles, not by fighting them, but by understanding them so completely that you are no longer ruled by their centrifugal force. The Ouroboros, therefore, resolves the dilemma not by choosing between fate and freedom, but by revealing them as two perspectives on the same reality. From the outside, the circle is fate. From the inside, experienced with awareness, it is the workshop of freedom. Your destiny is the shape of the loop, but your freedom is the quality of your attention as you travel it. The serpent does not ask you to break the circle, but to become the conscious artist of its endless, renewing turn. That still point at the center of the turning wheel is not a place you find, it is a state you become. After all this talk of cosmic eggs and world serpents, the most shocking truth of the Ouroboros is that it is not out there. It is in here. It is you. You are the living, breathing system of self-consumption and renewal. Every single day, you perform this ancient ritual with your own life. Think about it. That outdated belief about yourself that you finally released, that was the tail entering the mouth, the painful end of a relationship that made space for a deeper understanding of love, that was the necessary dissolution. The career path you walked away from, the identity you shed, even the small, daily letting go of a grudge or a fear, these are not signs of failure. They are the precise, personal mechanics of the serpent's coil. Your life is the closed vessel, your awareness is the heat, and your past, in all its messy, glorious detail, is the prima materia waiting to be transmuted. The symbol's grand promise of cosmic immortality translates into a very human instruction. Stop seeing your life as a straight line from birth to death, littered with mistakes you leave behind. Start seeing it as a circle you are actively drawing, where every experience, especially the difficult ones, is not discarded but is instead pulled forward, consumed, and integrated into the person you are becoming right now. Your failures are not in points, they are the most potent fuel you possess. A heartbreak holds the condensed energy for greater empathy. A professional setback contains the compressed lessons for wiser strategy. A period of confusion is the fertile soil for new clarity. These are not philosophical platitudes, they are the practical physics of the Ouroboros. The serpent does not waste a single scale. It uses every part of its journey to nourish the next step. You must learn to do the same. This means a radical shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did this bad thing happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What part of my old self is this experience asking me to consume and transform? What tale is being presented to my jaws? The habit of people-pleasing, the need for constant control, the story of being a victim, the fear of unworthiness, these are the tough, scaly tales we often drag behind us for years. We try to ignore them, hide them, or cut them off, but the symbol insists the only way to be free of their weight is to turn and face them, to bite down with conscious courage, and to digest them into wisdom. This is the alchemy of the self. You are both the lead and the gold, the poison and the cure. The struggle you are in right now is not a sign you are off your path. It is the evidence you are exactly on it, in the midst of the circulatio. That feeling of being stuck, of repeating the same pattern, is the serpent's head nearing its tail once more, offering you another chance to complete the circle with more awareness than the last time. So look at your own life through the lens of the eternal loop. Where do you see a cycle, a recurring argument, a repeated financial pattern, a familiar wave of anxiety? Do not despair at the repetition. Study it. That cycle is your personal Ouroboros, showing you exactly where the work is. The goal is not to break the circle, but to master the art of traveling it. To move from being an unconscious passenger on a dizzying wheel to becoming the conscious artist of a sacred spiral, where each return to the beginning finds you wiser, more integrated, more whole. The secret meaning was never about a snake. It is about the stunning, terrifying, beautiful truth that you are a self-contained universe, designed for endless regeneration. You are both the guardian and the treasure, the destroyer and the creator, the question and the answer, forever coiled within the perfect circle of your own becoming. So the serpent's final lesson is not a secret to uncover, but an invitation to accept. You are now holding the complete map, from the cosmic egg to the compost heap of your own past. This symbol's power lies not in a single meaning, but in its perfect adaptability, its ability to be both a prison and a liberation, a boundary and a womb, depending entirely on your own awareness. The Ouroboros is a mirror. It reflects back whatever stage of the journey you are on. Are you feeling trapped in an endless, repeating pattern? The serpent shows you the walls of your current cycle. Are you in a painful period of dissolution, where everything familiar seems to be falling apart? The serpent shows your tail in its mouth, the necessary consumption before renewal. Are you experiencing a moment of profound new growth, a creative burst, or a fresh start? The serpent shows the new head emerging, born from what you have digested. There is no right or wrong interpretation, only the one that speaks to your spirit in this moment. For the ancient Egyptian, it was a guardian of cosmic order. For the Gnostic, a diagram of material confinement. For the alchemist, a manual for personal gold. For the modern systems thinker, it is the blueprint of every feedback loop that sustains our world. Each is true. Each is a facet of the same dazzling, timeless truth, that existence is a closed circuit of transformation. Nothing is ever truly created from nothing, and nothing is ever truly destroyed into nothingness. Energy, matter, consciousness, love, pain, memory, all of it is perpetually recycled, reconfigured, and reborn within the great coil. This is the ultimate comfort and the ultimate challenge. The comfort is that every ending you face is, in fact, a disguised beginning. The loss, the failure, the closing of a door, is the tail being drawn into the mouth of your future self. The raw material of that experience will be digested and will become part of the substance from which your next chapter is built. You are not leaving anything behind, you are integrating it. The challenge is that this requires your active participation. The universe may operate on Ouroboros principles automatically, but for you to find peace within it, you must choose to become a conscious participant in your own cycles. You must learn to spot the serpent in your own life. Where are you running from your own tail? What past hurt or old identity are you dragging behind you, hoping it will just fade away, when what it truly needs is to be turned around, faced, and finally consumed? What rigid skin have you outgrown that you need the courage to shed? This is not a one-time event. It is the eternal work. Each time you complete a loop, each time you consciously transform a piece of your past into wisdom, you don't exit the circle. You simply travel it with more grace, more understanding, and more light. You move from the dizzying outer edge toward the still, knowing center. So as we close this exploration, I leave you with the serpent's silent question. Which of its many faces speaks to you right now? Is it the protective guardian, urging you to create a sacred boundary for your own growth? Is it the alchemical circulatio, inviting you to patiently refine your own character through repeated effort? Is it the world encircling Jormungandr, showing you a tense system in your life that may need a courageous release to renew? Or is it the Kundalini, coiled at your base, waiting for your breath to begin its ascent toward unity? Your answer is the starting point for your own journey within the loop. The symbol's meaning is not locked in ancient texts. It is alive in your choices, your struggles, and your capacity for rebirth. So take this map and use it. Draw your own circle, bite your own tail, and remember, in the endless dance of the eternal serpent, you are never just a passenger. You are the dance itself.